What's up, guys? Welcome to the first devlog of this new game that I'm working on called Throne Ascendant. It's a game that I've had in my brain for like probably 2 years. The original form of the game is completely different than the route that I've ended up deciding to go. Throne Ascendant. This is like a year or two ago. I built this in Vue.js because this was supposed to be a browser-based, text-based experience, and that's it. So you start and you're asked, what do you want to name your tribe? You confirm it, and then you're greeted with your council members, and they're saying, hey, the king is demanding taxation. What are we going to do? We're going to bend the knee. What are we going to do? So you can ask, and then you decide to either refuse or bend the knee. So let's just refuse. And then you get a little dialogue here about what that means, and then you begin your journey. And then from here, as you can see, it's just, you've got your workers, you've got your resources, barracks, guild manager. So you can, let's see, you've got 10 soldiers. So if we decommission, we've got one soldier in training. If I decommission soldiers, I can recruit an ironsmith, for example, and then that goes into the event log. And if you start the time, as the time ticks, so 1 day, 2 days, so on and so forth, the soldiers finish training. And this was as far as I got with this game, but that was the concept, was building this like narrative journey, but you're still kind of managing your civilization. Fast forwarding about a year later, I wanted to like make this more so like Civ, but I wanted to really lean into the narrative portion of it. I haven't really gotten to any of the narrative parts or the story parts of this game. This is the first devlog, so I'm just kind of showcasing the features I have. Jumping into what we have, you can see it's pretty simple, a hex, isometric hex-based grid. We got some features such as if you hover over a tile long enough, you'll see a description of what that tile is. And then there are randomly generated resources depending on the tile type. Food has randomly generated on plains. You can see gold has randomly generated on this mountain. But then over here you have units. Now you can see there's actually two sprites stacked on top of each other. The builder does not belong to me. It's actually an AI unit, so I'll move over here. So this is an AI unit, and then this is my unit, the settler. So the settler has two options. He can move, he can settle. So let's just move here. Actually seems fine, because then we'll have access to gold and the food. So we settle, and bam. There's a little event log at the top right here telling you that a player founded a city and claimed 5 tiles. You can't do anything with the city. There's no city management. Nothing like that is built. Up top here, there are your resources. So this is actually bugged. You're supposed to start out with an amount. So if I go to the next turn, you can actually see it updated. So I have 1 gold in my territory. That's giving me 3 a turn. I have a food in my territory, and that's giving me 2 a turn. And then you can see those values incremented. And if I go to the next turn, they'll do it again. So yeah, this is what I have so far. And switching gears a little bit before I get into some like architectural decisions and discoveries I made, I want to kind of preface by saying, like, I've never made a game. This is new to me. I've used Unity before, but not extensively, and I haven't used it for quite a while. So this journey is kind of like watching someone learn game development, learn Unity, while also seeing a project kind of come together. So I think that's kind of unique, because you see a lot of people like do things really quickly and they do a lot of magic, and it makes you kind of feel like, well, dang, I have no clue where I'd even start with that. So seeing someone kind of go through that can kind of be uplifting in its own. So let's kind of start with my workflow. I am keeping things as simple as I can. I'm not really getting, I'm not using a lot of things like events and stuff like that are built into Unity, because I don't understand them. All the art that you saw, I did not do. I think like one of the things that new developers or new game developers specifically fall into is feeling like you need to make all this stuff on your own and your game needs to look good outright. I struggle with that. I truly do. So I went ahead and just got some free assets that I knew would work, and that makes me feel a lot better. Another thing that I think is important is to use the modern tools that you have to your disposal. So in my everyday life, at work, my own personal business, I use AI augmented workflows quite a bit because you should be, as a developer, you should be, or you'll be left behind. So I use Claude for things that I didn't immediately understand. So what you're looking at is my pathfinding manager, and this is the algorithm that Claude wrote for me to calculate movement range. It's using a breadth first search to explore outward hexes from your starting position. The last important thing I'll touch on with my workflow is before I started developing, I created a game design document. After that, I created a development roadmap. So this roadmap breaks out the project into phases, and then those phases are broken out into smaller subtasks. So as you can see, the first thing I completed was the core grid system and simply getting the coordinates of hexes, doing hex math, all that kind of stuff. The reason why I think this is important is when you knock these little tasks, it makes you feel a lot more accomplished whenever you actually complete them. It also makes it to where you're forcing yourself to understand your own game a lot better. So, ending this devlog, I want to talk about one thing that I kind of have found to be super important in an architectural decision that I made during this project. I initially was starting off to where every tile was kind of like its own game object. So each tile had like a tile script, and then that it inherited mono behavior, and didn't think much of it because that seemed like the natural flow of Unity development. And then actually Claude helped me understand that that was not great practice. And the reason why is because making each tile a game object puts a whole ton of overhead. So imagine each tile has that script. Now you got 1,000 tiles. Each tile is going to run an update. So now you got 1,000 updates running on top of everything else in your game. So something I did to bolster performance was to kind of take the tile out of a game object and store it into plain data that is handled by my hex grid manager. So I'm able to access the tile map in a dictionary of objects rather than game objects. Something I learned from this is that going forward, you really need to think about the implications of the decisions you make early on. All right, thank you for watching. This is the end of the first devlog. I wanted to keep it short. There's not too much to talk about. There's not too many things in the way of features. I'm just using this as kind of a way to keep myself motivated even further, and also have like some sort of video evidence of the progress of the game so far. So eventually, like 10 devlogs down the line, when the game looks completely different, that'll be really interesting for me to watch, and hopefully for anyone else. Hopefully you guys just getting into game development or interested in the journey get inspired seeing someone also learning and doing things that are cool. And you guys can do it too.